heart at home in old Ireland, where in the county of Armagh. It's my own Irish home, far across the foam. Although I've often left it to foreign lands to roam, no matter where I wander, through cities near or far, should be hearts at home in old Ireland, where in the county of Armagh.
So listen, good afternoon everyone, and thank you for taking the time to attend this public meeting today. All are welcome. I nor indeed I believe those who invited me to chair this event today have any personal agenda, only to ensure that as many of our local community are informed of how the situation that we find ourselves in today came about. And let me be very clear, none of us who stand here today are interested in dividing our communities, our friends, our families, and we have no interest in bad-mouthing or slandering anyone or any institution. And that's important that people hear that. The only agenda we have is to fulfill the wishes of the late Mrs. Doyle. And on a personal and selfish note, and deliver a much needed community hub facility for this village and its communities. So let us listen to the truth and to the facts, and then people can be their own judges. Can I introduce you to Liz here?
Hello everyone, thank you all for coming here today. My name is Liz Madden, and for those who don't know me or the Doyle family, I was engaged to the late John Doyle, who died suddenly on the 3rd of July 1997. John Doyle was the only child of the late Betsy and Jackie Doyle, who owned Doyle's Bar and funeral business in Camlough. John was 36 years old when he passed away, and he died 6 months before our wedding. When John passed away, his death changed Betsy's life and my life. Shortly after John's death, Betsy Doyle willed approximately 10 acres of land to the parish and parishioners of Camlough, in trust that the land be used to build a church or community centre, and she appointed 2 trustees, Mr. Tim Donnelly and Father Sean McCartan, to carry out her wishes. It was Mrs. Doyle's wish that her only child and the Doyle name be remembered in Camlough, and she fervently requested that a church or community centre would be named after her son John. In September 2000, I took over the running of the Doyle business, but Betsy wasn't taking any chances, and she left me strict instructions that John's name was to stay above the door. I'm happy to say that 23 years later, his name is still above the door. In 2002, Betsy heard that the Camlough community had tried to buy the old school, to build a community centre, but they were turned down by Father Bradley, and the community lost £1 million funding. On hearing the community's predicament, Betsy spoke to her old friend, Joe McElhall, and she made it known to him her intentions for the 10-acre field. Following that conversation, Camlough Community Regeneration Group was formed, and the early members included the late Joe McElhall, Brian O'Reilly and Emmett Quinn, all sadly deceased. There was also Tom Cunningham, Mrs. Doyle's accountant, Dr. Reynolds, who also became Mrs. Doyle's power of attorney, and I, Liz Madden. Eden Cole, an architect and relative of Mrs. Doyle, was also involved. There followed many meetings in the offices of Donnelly, Neary and Donnelly with one of the trustees, Mr. Tim Donnelly, and in the hope of moving Betsy's intentions forward to build a community centre and to name it after her son John. On the 28th of April 2004, sadly, Betsy passed away at her home, surrounded by people who loved and cared for her. In 2006, Camlough Community Regeneration Group announced to the wider public Mrs. Doyle's intentions for the 10-acre field. Indeed, following one article, the TV crews descended on Camlough, and the buzz around Camlough was amazing. For those who knew Betsy, they will remember her wonderful sense of humour, her integrity, honesty, dignity, loyalty, and she was a great business lady too. Betsy loved Camlough and she loved its community, and she wanted to do the right thing for everyone. Betsy was full of old Irish sayings, wise words and proverbs, and I often heard her say, "The truth will come out in the end. Is it the bar talk, or is it from the horse's mouth? Every man is sociable until a cow invades his garden. Beware of the anger in a patient man or woman. You never plough a field by turning it over in your mind. Sunshine always follows the rain." So if we can relate our current situation to Betsy's wise words of wisdom, the truth will come out in the end, and we as a community will find out who is behind the proposed selling of the Doyle land. And from the horse's mouth, I know that Betsy Doyle left the 10-acre to the Camlough community to build a community centre and named after John. Currently, somebody is trying to invade our garden, our 10 acres. I can tell you from research that this field always belonged to the Camlough community. It has been part of the Doyle family since 1827. It was leased out to your great-grandfathers and great-great-grandfathers who grew potatoes on it. Back then, times were very difficult for families, and especially during the Great Famine. But we as a community will remain sociable and approach things with dignity and do the right thing, what is morally right, and in Betsy's name and in Betsy's memory. The Camlough people have been very, very patient with the trustees, but there is no point in turning things over in our minds. We need to come together and work together and plough our field and build our community centre. And remember, the sun always follows the rain. Right now, this is rain, but the sun will follow. Sometimes when somebody is building their own empire, they're looking after their own needs. They forget the needs of those around them. Mrs. Doyle was looking after the needs of the Camlough community. Camlough community need this land and they need a community centre. I would just like to finish by thanking Declan and Bernie and Francis and Fimber and Shane and all those who have brought the project, and Pat for bringing this project to where it is. And I know that Mrs. Doyle would be very, very proud of you all. Thank you.
And now I'm going to ask Declan to speak.
Thanks, Pat. And thanks everybody for coming here today. And thanks, Liz, for that contribution as well. I think it's very, very important because, unfortunately, when a situation like this arises, when people haven't got the facts, unfortunately they tend to add their own bits and pieces, and it's not necessarily always the case. So it's just very, very important, and it's a bit of a chronological journey from whenever the Community Association got involved to where we are today. But it's just to outline it as best as possible, but as succinctly as possible, because there's a serious amount of detail. I personally didn't get involved in this until around about 2006. I was aware that Betsy had bequeathed this land behind us, the 10 acre, in order for a community centre to be built on it. I was aware that there had been a group organised under the chairpersonship of the late Brian O'Reilly. Whenever we noticed an application in the newspapers by the church to build 82 houses on this land, I knew there was something wrong. And I remember speaking to a few people and said, look, we're going to have to get involved here and try and retrieve this bit of land. So our first port of call was with the trustees. Now the trustees are people, they don't own the land, they're just given responsibility. And the responsibility was based on Betsy's will And Betsy made it very, very clear there's a number of options here. One was the building of a church, or the other was the building of a community centre. Now, it was very clear, and the church agreed, they never were going to build another church in this area. They were going to build a community centre. However, some within the church thought that they had the authority to deal and do whatever they liked with the land. The trustees decided to take that to court. It wasn't the community association, it was the trustees that took that to court. And Justice Deney made it very, very clear in his judgment that the trustees had the ultimate responsibility of what was to happen with the land in the context of the wishes of the testator, Betsy Doyle. So it wasn't the church. The church accepted that. They accepted that. And I just want to read you just a wee bit of Justice Deney, what he had said, just to put a wee bit of facts to all of this issue. So in it, he made it very, very clear that yes, the trustees were the ones that would have to decide. They were given the responsibility by Betsy Doyle to make sure that her wishes were fulfilled. And in it, he said, it shall be lawful, and this is a judge, right? It shall be lawful for the trustees to dispose of a portion of the lands which are subject to the bequest by way of lease or otherwise to a Camlough Community Association for the purposes of building, maintaining and running a community centre entirely at the expense of the said community association. You know, so it's very, very clear that he read into the will that this was a portion of this land was to go to the community association. So on the back of that, the church accepted that they hadn't got the right to do whatever they liked with the land. The trustees were happy that they had the right, and they accepted also that there had to be an input from the community association. So for quite a number of years after that, we sat down, it was like a tripartite agreement. We sat down with the trustees, with the church and with the community association, and we formulated a plan. And the plan was that a portion of the land would be set aside, as it said in the judgment, set aside for the building of a community centre, and that it would be up to us as a community to try and ensure that we got the funding for that. And that's what we were doing for quite a number of years. The church at that stage was represented by Father Sean Larkin, since retired, and Father Bobby McKenna, who has since deceased. And they were very, very much supportive of that agreement. Father McKenna would always be at the AGM meetings for the Community Association. And just while I mention AGMs, we'll be having an AGM sometime around the end of September. And again, everybody will be welcome. Just to see where I am here. So we had the judgment, you had both Father Sean Larkin and Father McKenna very much in favour of the agreement and the plan. And on the back of that, we were given the consent by the trustees to go to the council and get the land zoned for community use only. And that's what we did. So the very back part of the 10 acre is zoned for agricultural use only. Part of the agreement was that was going to go to the church, and the front part of the 10 acre for community use only. And that's the way it is still zoned today. Okay? So we put in numerous funding applications to try through the money that came from Europe. We were successful once, but unfortunately for us, they hadn't got the application got across the line, but they hadn't got the funds for us. And we applied to a number of different funders as well. But on the second time we applied for European money, they were looking at us legal title. So what they were saying is, okay, we know you've got an agreement with the trustees and with the church, but we need to see legal title. So we went back to the trustees, explained the urgency, and the trustee at this stage, because Tim Donnelly had retired, he was one of the trustees, and Father Sean McCartan, the other trustee, was now in Tyrone. So Kevin Neary, he took charge, and he was the solicitor in charge of the trustees. So, just if I can get you another quote here. And this is from Kevin Neary, whenever we were looking for a legal title. And he wrote back to us after a wee bit of background work that he did himself, and he said, I confirm that I have received the executed transfer deed from Walker MacDonald. Walker MacDonald is our solicitor, on behalf of Camlough Community Association. I confirm the documents as received are approved by me. This is the guy that was in charge of the trustees. I further confirm that I will be recommending that the trustees sign the same document next week as they accord with what has been agreed in connection with the estate. Now, it can't be any clearer than that. That's what was agreed. The church had their own planning consultant from Newry. We had our own architect. Between them, they did the boundary line, which you can see in front of you here. That's what was agreed. That's what the trustees are talking about here. That's what the church are talking about as well. Now, the church were pretty happy with the arrangement because the understanding was that we would have a right of way for whoever was going to develop up the back, and that we would use whatever clout, whatever political clout we could motivate, that we would try and use that to ensure that people were able to develop up the back. So they were happy enough with that. It wasn't just a bit of an agricultural field where you could graze a few or cattle or sheep, that they were actually going to be able to develop it. So everybody was in agreement with that. And the other thing is that whenever Justice Deeney was making his judgment, he did say to us, if you weren't happy with the outcome, with the way this is going, that you can come back to us. So we, as a community association, have a right to go back to the courts if we were not happy. So in the meantime, everything was signed up. The deed was signed by myself. I'll just maybe, if anybody ever wants to take a look at it, we have it here. But I'll just give you the final part of the deed where it says very, very clearly, and that was what was agreed. That's on the map below me, which is on the deed. Executed as a deed by Camlough Community Association, acting by Declan Murphy. I was the chair at that particular time. So that's the deed transfer that we had. We also explained to the council the situation we were in, and they put us onto the list, the corporate list. So in other words, once it's on the corporate list, they have to go and look for funding to build or to fulfil the project. So it's sitting there with the council. And we also put in an application on the back of all of this to planning for a community centre, and it was Francis McShane that did all the groundwork for that. Francis is here today with us. That application was put in, I think, around about 2019, and it was eventually approved in October 2022. These things, unfortunately, do take time, and like a lot of this, we had to be patient, but we got there. We had our planning application approved. We then met together again. We decided, okay, now with the approval, we will have to start the fundraising, and we set out a plan of work for the fundraising. We were hoping to start. The first thing we'll have to do is dismantle the bridge, pull it back in order to get sight lines, and then rebuild it back up again. That's what we were hoping to start in September. The trustees were aware of that. By December of last year, I was made aware that the old school had been bought. I spoke to the person that bought it. I asked him what all did he buy. He said he bought the old school and the rocks. I said, did you buy the wee bit of land up the back that belongs to the church? He said no, but I was interested in buying it. I explained the part that belongs to the community. He was very much aware of that. I said there is a right of way. We will share the road right up to the back part, and we will fulfil the commitment we give to the church. Whoever develops up the back, we will help them on that journey. So he was pretty happy with that. And I said, so if you decide to build that, make sure you come back to us and we can sit down and work this all out. Unfortunately, by June of this year, the first I knew that anything was happening was when I saw the bollards blocking our entrance to that bit of land. Of course, it wasn't too long before we found out who put the bollards in place. We arranged quite a number of meetings to see what was going on. One of the myths that I have to bust here today is that this land is already bought. This land is not already bought. There is a deposit down. Anybody knows anything about buying a site, you can put your deposit down. Both the seller or the buyer can pull out at any time. Until that contract is fully completed, that land is not bought. Even if it was bought, we have a freehold interest in it. Now, while the trustees mightn't sort that out for us or anybody else, the courts will. So bottom line, folks, is this is going to be a fight. We had a fight before whenever they tried to build 82 houses on it. We were successful that time. We will fight it again. We have an obligation here to fulfil the wishes of Betsy Doyle. We have an obligation which we have given the people of Camlough many, many years ago, and this went out to consultation. Many people were involved in that consultation. Many people were involved in previous meetings. I can see them here in this crowd today. And we will fulfil the commitment that we give to both Liz and the memory of Betsy Doyle and to the people of Camlough. We will go to court if we have to go to court, if people don't come to their senses, and we will build a community centre on that bit of land behind you.
Right. So today, people have been given our truth and the facts. Now you can go away and digest it, think about it, and do what I did. You know, I actually come up for a few days and sat with Liz and asked her to go through stuff with me, or Declan. And I see Mickey Brady and I see Justin McAnulty, that's great. So, and I know what it's like to be involved in politics and if there's rows and particularly stuff like that. So feel free to talk to any of these people at the Community Association and look at the facts. There's no lying going on from this end. I told Liz I wouldn't be here today if I didn't believe it. My days of fighting and arguing, and a lot of people I know here with people, I'm proud of my village. I don't want to be fighting and arguing anymore. And we're here and we're on solid ground. This is our ground. Said to Pierce McGuinness, I remember getting the chestnuts out of the 10 acre 40 years ago. It seems like yesterday. He says, no, Pat, it was 40 years ago, 50 years ago. 60 years to hear him. And the letter and spirit of what Mrs. Doyle desired is clear to me. And it's the same. It's a gift to the people of Camlough, for the people of Camlough, to be used by the people of Camlough. 150 years ago, landlords called the people agitators and trespassers for claiming what was rightfully theirs. We are not agitators. We are not rebels. We are, and you are, the people. This belongs to the community. It is our place. It was not to be used for profit, but for people. What sort of Camlough do we want? Where is the heart of the village to match the heart that's in the village? I look around today and I see our sports clubs and our boxing clubs and all our community clubs here. Where's that spirit to match that spirit? And I'm proud that we have a thriving local business and family orientated local businesses. And they're a vital part of our community. And we're lucky to have them owned so that all our owners are socially responsible businesses. But we can't just be a thoroughfare with a car park either side of the road. We're not a retail park or a glorified apple green. We are a place, a community, a people. When Mrs. Doyle's faithful soul departed, she left this as her annum, the Irish word we use, in her name to be the Doyle family earthly legacy. We will honour that. Nelson Mandela said, "It is never too late to do the right thing." And I believe that this is the message we should send to those who have the solving of this situation without further court cases, further frustration, spent money and disharmony. I believe the message that we can, in a neighbourly and a community way, say to those people is, do the right thing. Thank you very much, and safe journey home.
Raise your glass to the smuggling men from Middletown, Kelly and Crossmidland, for you never will see their likes again. Them whaling, dealing, smuggling men. CB radio, mobile phone, the convoy leaves the station, strike the road in the dead of night, for the boys are smuggling. Coded message from the front, no time for hesitating. Take the fire, oh keeper lit, for the customs men are way of town. Raise your glass to the smuggling men, for Middletown, Keely and Crossman, we never will see their lights again.